Welcome back, subscribers. I'm going to talk about social engineering and how it really works. There's been a lot of people that have talked about this and how you can implement this currently into the news in general, what's going on right now. And every time that they come out with something, there's a series of news stories that'll come out that are incredibly distracting and they're very triggering, and it's not good. And if it's being allowed to come out, they have. When you say, well, let's go over the they. Let's say, like, who are the they? A lot of people say that the they. It is the upper level administration that basically runs our media system, okay, through the internet, and it's a conglomerate, if you will. There isn't, from what I understand, there isn't some like room with these old guys, sitting around a table smoking cigars, trying to figure out how they're going to, pull one over on humanity and run you into the ground and so on and so on. But there's business interest absolutely that is in the United States, the Western world in general, but then the rest of the world as well. And they have interests in keeping things going so that everybody basically gets up and goes to work every day. I had a partner who was a stockbroker about 20 years ago, and we started. It was pretty innocent when we first got started. We had a general contracting business, and since I had the building background, he put the money up. He was basically the money guy, and I went and got my license for the state of North Carolina, and we had a partnership. And I can't remember what had happened back then. There was some kind of scandal or something that was going on in in the markets in general, and it was Enron or something that was like they made some really big deal out of it. And I had asked him, I said, what's your take on it? Being somebody that's like handling, brokerage and clients, like, what are you telling people so they don't like get, they don't freak out and run to the exits and sell everything? And I was young at the time when we first got started. I think I was like mid 20s, 25, something like that. And but I didn't really understand older money, people that were more established and had been through it enough times. And he had said he was a couple of years older than I was, and he said, none of it matters as long as they get up tomorrow and they go to work. He said that's how the whole system works, right? And I had heard that from a number of other older people that I worked with. I worked for them. And I got the privilege of working. I was a really skilled carpenter when I first came to Raleigh, just to kind of get my feet wet. I worked for people, so I was a subcontractor, and I ended up working in an environment that was like the old money section of Raleigh. And these are like families that are generational wealth families that own like major city blocks, just like everybody's got in every other town. And I could throw some names around, and you could look up like these people, like who they are, like what these companies are, and find out that they own like not one car dealership, they own like 20, right? Or they own a heavy equipment operating company that owns like 2/3 of the state of North Carolina in heavy equipment or something like that. They're suppliers to grow the area basically, but but their family got started really early. So I got the privilege of working for these people. So I got to see behind the scenes, like, how do these people live? How do they, I didn't necessarily, yeah, sometimes I'd see them brush their teeth. But I would be, since I was remodeling in their house, day in and day out, I could see, how they raise their children, how they, put their shoes on, you name it. And I was just like basically a fly on the wall. And it just turned out because I was a subcontractor. So I was contracting work for a GC who had multiple projects. He had probably 10 projects. When I say money wise, they were $500,000 remodel projects, like big money and up. So there was the rich of the rich in Raleigh for sure. And at any rate, it just brought me to this point where I would just ask them questions. There was one guy that I ended up working for the better part of a year and doing this huge project. And we had a really good relationship. He was in his late 60s, and we got to talking. And I just asked him one day. I'm like, hey, I'm starting a family. My daughter was just being born, and I'm like, can you give me some like business advice? Like investment advice, like how like how should I be trying to like set myself up, for the future, and basically be what would be the best way to put myself in that position. And this guy was his name was Charles McKinney. So he was he was the starter of McKinney Silver Advertising, which was really a large advertising outfit. And I just knew him as Chick. Chick was like I we had a different type of relationship. And I was at that time I was a really young guy. I was like in my early 20s. And but I was doing his wine cellar. It was just me. I wasn't working for some guy and just like cutting lumber and handing it to somebody. I had a lot of experience coming in from where I had grown up and worked, because I actually started using like building things when I was in like 8th grade. So I got into construction and doing high end projects. It was pretty easy for me to move into it because I had been doing it for so long. And a lot of the buildings that I worked on from where I was from were really run down and old. So I had experience with some very interesting materials that were not really in the South. They were in this area though, so I already had a really good expertise, knowledge of the in the business. So Chick says to me one day, he says, he's like, just don't pay interest. He said, that's, if you can get to the point where you don't have to ever pay interest, he said, things will really open up for you. But if you always have that in the back of your mind that you're not going to pay interest, he said, then that'll put you in a totally different position than most everybody else. And it always just stuck with me, and getting to that point, it took me a long time, probably 15 years to get to that point. But he was right. He was absolutely 100% right. So some of these stories I'm going to talk about are these changes that are happening, and putting them in a way that will get people moving in a direction that will get them to look at it, not from what they see or hear in the news or go on social media and look it up, but if you have an understanding of business, or you're interested in getting into business, you need to have information from somebody that's done it before. All right. And the more that you can be around others that do things that are at a higher level than most, and just kind of be a fly on the wall to how it works, you'll be successful. I mean, if you have a little bit of drive and a little bit of interest, that's really all you need. And when we started kind of putting this project together, I didn't think that there was any real value in it, to be honest. I had, we were like doing these videos privately, and I thought everybody else thought the same way, because I was just like a personal, like a startup guy. I was, doing it on my own, and I thought, well, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just like, just continue to keep working at it. And I thought that everybody was kind of doing the same thing, that there wasn't really anything special about it. My background was 100%, self-made. My parents didn't help me. And I just talked to people. I constantly asked questions, and that's what put me into a position of having availability of making moves and interest in things, and moving towards being successful. And being incredibly observant of people that were successful. That's another one. Like, if you can be, there's a thing that would happen. My family's into golf. We did travel golf with my children. And if you play any sport with somebody that's better than you, if you do anything and you're already with people that are really highly accomplished, it rubs off on you, because you'll pick up things. You'll notice things. Maybe it was something like you're growing up and your father always worked on cars, and you didn't necessarily go to school, but you picked up on stuff, and now you can work on cars. Maybe it's like you're on your mother, and whoever it is in the house, it's a grandmother, and she Oh, she's the grandmother that made the cookies, right? She's a baker, or maybe she's a seamstress or something like that. And there's just little things that you pick up on that they do as craft, and you pick up on them, and then you do them later in life. You find they become very excuse me, it's soothing to you, and you find out like that these old tricks. Oh, the way that my grandmother used to do it was like this, and this, and then you find out that there's it's a way. It's something that has somebody that has done something for a long time is going to do it. Eventually they're going to do it the most efficient, effective way. All right. So when people are in business of whatever it is, and I've said this, everything is transactional. Everything that you do is some sort of a business transaction. All right. You're trading information with somebody at the park. You're taking your children to the football game. Something. It's that you have to, when you do something and you move forward, it's a transaction. And when you start thinking about things that way, and you think about emotional transactions, all right? You have a good day, you have a bad day. Whenever these things happen, and you start looking at like, okay, there's a payoff. There's an interest and a payoff. All right, for everything that you do, there is that element comes into play. And when you can start thinking that way for everything that you do, again, I thought that that's what people were doing. I was analyzing things. So when I was in school, I grew up as a someone that was. I've got I guess technically it's a learning disability. I have dyslexia, and for the life of me today, still I can when I read things, if I don't really have much interest in it, I cannot read for content. I can't do it. It's I will switch words around. Even whenever I need something, I'll switch something around, which is it's incredibly irritating, and it's always been something behind the scenes, especially in business, where I'm the guy that's reading emails like 6 times before I send it. I'm overcompensating and making sure that everything is exactly right. Like I've become like hyper aware of it, and because of that, my mistake level is front loaded. Like it's like I know I'm going to make the mistake, so I have to go back through this and read this. So not really the most effective, efficient way to do it, but it's something that has always forced me moving forward to be better, because I've had to work harder at being better. And then because of that, me going into anything that I do, I am always assuming everybody is better at what I'm doing. And as I started aging and 30, 40, and I just hit the 50 mark last year, I was like, geez, like what's everybody else doing? People that maybe I went to school with, and like I just have my head down working, and I'm not by any stretch a workaholic. It's just the way that my brain processes all types of information, and it's as if I'm looking at things from an observational perspective to try to get every little piece of something in order to give me a better picture in my mind of how it actually runs and works, because I have to know the inner workings of that thing. Because whenever something isn't working properly, or there's friction in it, I got to know like, well, okay, well, how did you get to this point? Tell me each one of those steps that you did, and then I can more efficiently break that down and repair it, because that's how I have to do everything. And from now and looking back, it's a major strength. It's not a normal thing, but it's also gotten me aware, like when it's come to financial elements, that there are financial elements and things that are in play, and this new system that's coming in is super compartmentalized, and you have to really have your head on the swivel to understand. You have to understand business history. You have to understand, current business and how that runs, and contracting. You have to understand international law and rules and things that are coming into play. And if the way AI works is unless you can ask an intelligent question, if you can ask it what you want, you already know the answer. So the problem with these super intelligent systems is most people don't have the broad enough education to understand where it's going. And that's the number one thing that gets everyone paralyzed. They're just waiting for like the next person to come in for one extra little piece to the puzzle, and then that's gonna get them to figure it out. But I'm telling you, like this new system, it's set up to have like a perpetual antagonizer in it. All right. Like anybody that's been, in the business world, I'd say in the past, 15, 20, just say 20 years that you've been in the professional space, that every time you turn around and you think you got it, like everything that is, you got all your ducks in a row and everything is running, everything is great. And then you go back to something is not working correctly. And then you end up having to go back and redo it. And this has started to really come into play with software, computer software. And I just had a conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago who's somebody that we use for our business. And he was complaining about basically the same thing. And I said, hey, everybody's running into this. I said, and he was talking about facial recognition. And he's like, I'm just going to do it. He said, I didn't want my face to be on any of these recognition sites or anything else, or me to like log in and all this other business. He said, but I just don't have the time to sit there and authenticate and do everything they want me to do. And I said, that's what they wanted you to do. They want to see you because that's at the end of the day, you're going to get these constant roadblocks. You'll be able to continue to keep doing it without putting your face on, but you're going to have to do all these extra steps in order to get to that point. And people are just going to finally throw up their hands. And in the business world, we're already there. I mean, it's a bear every morning to have to get up and get the systems running, make sure, check your, monitoring systems and make sure that, none of your passwords have been breached on the dark web, and you name it. And it's starting to become a real load on business people in general. And the people that are getting into it that are young, they don't even know about it. They don't know about it. So now the older class that has been going through this, if you've ever had a data breach or you've ever lost information and data, you'll know how important it is just to make sure that everything all works right. Because if you don't have access to it, you're out, you're done. And then you can get the material back, the information back. But if you have somebody, breach a credit card, just a credit card. I mean, this is happening even on the personal level, where these scammer people are out and they have means of just going out and taking anything that they want, and they'll breach the card. And then you're going to spend like the next, week, contacting all the agencies. Now, some of these cards will automatically, whenever a new card comes out, they will change the card number, to them. But there's to the company that you're doing business with. But anyway, this behavior is like warranted because ultimately the system is allowing this to happen, so that ultimately they can just use facial recognition or have a heightened level of security, so that when you log into your phone, it's going to be a one-stop shop. It is only you. Our generation was a generation where you could just put in one password and the whole family had access to your Netflix, your Pandora account, your whatever, Amazon account. That was another one. And now they're cutting that shit off. Be like, hey, all right, guys, we need to make sure it's secure so we can protect you. You're like, okay, yeah, that's what's happening. But it's because of these people behind the scenes that are, they're like allowing for nefarious behavior to happen. And they're like, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is happening. That if they wanted to stop it, they would. But they're allowing that behavior to continue to keep happening. And if you are someone that is looking out for yourself, you'll do whatever it takes to put yourself in the position not to have to deal with the chaff and the friction. So you're going to have all these monitoring sites and protection and security and all this other business, and limit your behavior, your digital imprint. And it's going to be, when this happens, it's going to be, I suspect that from what we understand from some of our channels that we have, we've got some people that are associated with the group, that there's going to be a moment in the Western world in general where there's going to be such a heavy data breach that it's going to end up being national news, and it's going to be a kind of a pivot point, a moment to use it in a way that identifies what's going to happen. And from that point forward, they're going to be, across the board, using these identification elements to protect you. Okay, and it's nothing to be afraid of. There's going to be people, so people that are dragging their feet that aren't doing it are going to be um, in a compromised position. If you know about this beforehand, you can be in a more protected space before this happens, so that you don't have to contend with losing information. Whatever it is on a personal side, it's going to be somebody that has digital, photos on, from their family for the past 10 years on a cloud, and it's going to be wiped out and be gone. Stuff like that's going to happen. Or it's going to be financial, and it's going to be financial institutions that are going to lose data, and people will not have any access to funds and retirements and things like that. So those elements are going to happen. And but if you can put yourself into a better position, and people are like, well, why don't you just tell us what to do? Be like, well, that's what this is this trying. You've got time. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to happen as like a ratcheting. It's going to continue to keep happening to the point where you'll listen to this, and then maybe a light bulb will go off your head, or you'll hear or see something. You'll run into somebody that has had something happen to them, and then you're gonna find about how to protect yourself. Excuse me. Banks are a big element in this. They're relatively protected. The big banks are going to be more protected than most. The smaller banks, not so much. I would say, I've told everybody, I said, at the end of the day, just be really diversified. If you've got a significant amount of money, do not have it in one place. Don't do that. This isn't financial advice, but spread it around and put it in multiple areas, because if something does happen and the institutions can't follow through and cover, which I know is what they say they will, but if they can't, at the end of the day, you want to keep on moving. And that's a word of the wise. So that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years, I'd say, getting ourselves in a position where thinking differently. Like every time that we open an account, passwords, password protections, any type of cybersecurity and things like that it's happening for everyone in my family on a personal side. It's not only on the business side, number one, but then that's trickled down into the personal side, because it's important across the board. You don't want somebody else like stealing your identification and information. It's getting to be way, way too easy for this to happen. So there'll be more of this to come. When I get some more information on this, it depends on what level it's going to be at. Again, I'm not going to put really too much of the internal stuff public, because there's a heavy level of contamination that's inside this space that we're not going to be part of. So we're just kind of like, raising the awareness flag, and flapping it in the breeze and just saying like, okay, there's behind the scenes, there's a lot of people that are already, that this is what business owners are talking about. Okay. They're everybody is concerned, and we don't really know where things are going. We know that upper level administration elements have things under control, and they're moving in the right direction, even though it looks really dirty and ugly. Yeah, it's going to be really hairy, and time wise, we're looking at 2028 is going to be kind of probably the ending of it, for sure, by 2030. So that means like probably over the next like 2 years, we're suspecting probably like, between now and summertime, that things are going to get pretty interesting, if you will. And it'll be very, it'll be interesting. I'll talk about it in the way that the news is kind of spinning it. So I have a way of like reading between the lines, because I know of like the general direction of what the overall plan is. And it's not like definitive. It's more like, if I was describing this, it's like you're in the open sea and you need a heading. 360 degrees and you see no land anywhere around you, which is basically where I see us right now, as in the Western world in general. Let's say like USA in general, because we always kind of have an idea like what we're doing, right? So imagine being out in the open sea and you're looking at the compass and you need to pick a degree. And when I say a degree, you need to pick like, within maybe 5 or 10 degrees to hit land. All right. Because we're really far out. When you're talking years out, I just need to kind of get the right direction. I don't need to head south if ultimately we need to go north. Do you see what I mean? Like that's the general assumption. So when this is one of the issues I have with people that are truthers that bring out information is it's like they want you to subscribe so that you keep coming back for more information. And they're drip feeding this information that still doesn't actually give you any type of heading. And I think that's demonic. It's awful. Just get a generalized understanding of what's going on and the things that are going to be super important moving forward, and start reapplying your energy to those spaces. Like pay really close attention to identification and digital and compliance, and pay attention to those things, because that's what's going to really matter in the future. Identifying of what you own. If it's in your name, if your company owns it, it's really super important. So again, like I'm going to, as more information comes out, I'll be kind of telling the spin story from, the between the lines type of thing, based upon what we know of the heading and what direction it's going. And if you want to know more about it, you can just go check out the site. And if you're not into it and you get angry because you're like, this guy isn't going to be telling me anything because it's behind the site, and be like, well, that's because that's our protection. I'm not messing around with this. I'm just not. It's we have too much invested, and too many people that are involved that want things to be moving with people that are responsible enough to look out for their own. And ultimately, we know that isn't everybody, and that's the nature of the beast. So there'll be more to come. Cheers.